All right, salams. Guess who I have here, guys? I want to thank brother here, Halal Stock Talk, for joining us. Najar is a very well known person when it comes to Islamic finance, especially locally, but I think also now quite internationally, also with the whole TikTok and stuff. I will be linking his TikTok and also his YouTube channel in the description below. The person who I've called is a expert in not only Islamic finance, also in real estate, and that's why he's going to be such a key person for today's topics, which is the concepts of real estate. I know you guys have asked me, all these various real estate questions, so this guy is the guy who can answer these questions. A quick introduction of him. He does have a background when it comes to corporate, but then he also jumped into other things, and now it's in real estate. I'm gonna let brother himself introduce himself, and then we can carry the conversation further. So please.
Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for having me, brother Ahmed. It's a pleasure to speak to you again. I mean, we're always crossing paths on this Islamic finance journey. So it's always a pleasure to get a chance to catch up. So if people haven't heard of who I am, my name is Nader Tohamy. I am halalstocktok on TikTok and on Instagram as well. I am a real estate agent by trade. So I am an expert when it comes to residential and commercial real estate in the Greater Toronto area. I'm familiar with putting together investment portfolios for my clients, as well as, buying and selling real estate. So without further ado, let's get into this and see what I can help answer for you and for your fans.
Amazing, amazing. So, before I jump into the whole technical sides of like pre-construction and all that stuff, I wanted to ask you, where do you see the market going, in not only GTA but also globally with the current issues with how much America is printing money, with all that's happening, and where do you see the sentiment of the market?
Well, I can only comment on what's happening here in Toronto in terms of like global. It really is a city to city like analysis because you can't really take a look at the picture on the whole when it comes to certain markets, right? When it comes to the Greater Toronto Area and Canada abroad, the market right now has reached a point where the inventory levels are starting to come back up because of the vaccinations and the reopening of the economy. So what's this doing is now it's taking the pressure off of the buyers who are scrambling to find a home, and now they're being a little picky. So now they can actually decide which home they want to put an offer on instead of waiting for something to come up, throw an offer amongst like 30, 40 other offers and hope to God that they're able to close on a deal.
Yeah.
Another thing we're seeing now is that conditions are back. So now you can ask for a review of a status certificate or a home inspection. So a lot of these things were being omitted from like offers just so that they would be competitive. What I see, because we have had a run up in terms of price, like if you take a look year over year, the prices for residential real estate in general are up by around 20% across the GTA. Outside of condos suffered a bit because of the pandemic. A lot
Yeah.
of people weren't able to lease out their properties, especially in the core of the Toronto downtown. So a lot of the rental prices went down. The inventory flooded the market when they wanted to cash out, and the prices went down significantly. Like I can tell you, a one bedroom like close to like Scotia Arena. Before the pandemic
Yeah.
was going maybe around 620, 630K. Investors wanted to hold cash at that time. They
Hmm.
didn't want to just rent it out to anyone, dropping the price from say like 2,500 a month to 1,800 a month.
Hmm.
I was able to get some clients like into some units like for that amount, which is crazy, especially in the core.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I see happening, like moving forward, is that if once the inventory levels start to stabilize a bit and we're back to a normal balanced market, we might see prices stabilize. I don't really see a correction in and around the core. Maybe on the fringes when you talk about stuff like in London or in Windsor or like outside of the GTA in general, you might see like a somewhat like stabilization, like what we call it a consolidation, like when it comes to like financial terms.
Yeah.
So I don't really see there being a balance, and I just see it kind of like moving forward in terms of the market kind of like appreciating at a normal rate, which is about 6% per year for the appreciation of real estate.
Yeah, and I mean also, I know that as soon as the borders open up, Canada's gonna be allowing in a lot more immigrants, so that's gonna maybe help the boost of the housing again. I'm really hoping there's like that tiny dip where I can kind of scoop in, and then the next raise, like, I'm happy for it to go up after that. No issues. A little selfish there.
Sure.
So okay, so let's jump into the concept of pre-construction.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm pretty sure you know the pre-construction and how they happen here. But I'm also may also put in the concept of the pre-constructions in Middle East and places like India, Pakistan, because I do have some viewers from there. So let's start with here, Canada. Can I jump into a pre-construction? What's it look like? Can I sell an assignment? I get a pre-construction. Can I sell an assignment? What are the guidelines around that?
All right. So in terms of a pre-construction, it follows pretty much any of the rules that buying and selling would, right? So I
Hmm.
mean, it's lawful for you to enter into a contract to these pre-construction, properties from the builder directly. And the way the contracts are structured is what would make this, compliant or not, right? It all comes down to like where the funds are going to be coming from. Like I wouldn't, from an Islamic point of view, leverage my way into buying pre-construction. I would only use cash. And once the transaction closes, you would want, a Sharia compliant loan or like complete it with cash. Or you have the option to assign the contract. So when it comes to assigning a pre-construction contract,
Hmm.
a lot of the time the terms of the assignment are clearly stated in the sale contract. So there is usually a understanding between the buyer and the seller that there's a pre-agreed upon term to assign it to another party, whereby like a lot of different criteria have to be met. So here in Canada, there's three general, templates of assignments that they would follow. So one would be like, an assignment that has like no fees or anything associated to it.
Hmm.
Another one would be a flat fee that would be required to assign it. And the third thing would be
Could the flat fee be a percentage or a fixed amount?
yeah, well, it really depends. So when it comes to the flat fee, it's usually pretty standard, especially here in like the Toronto area.
Hmm.
Like a lot of the time, you'll see like pre-construction condos, like the assignment fees, like around $5,000.
Okay.
It's just so that they can try to encourage the the resale of their contract in order to get it to close with a party who's looking to close it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other part is the actual percentage split of profit, right? So let's say I buy a condo today for $500,000,
Yeah.
and like it hasn't even been built yet, and that contract now is worth 700,000.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be closing a year from now.
Yeah.
So I'm able to sell this contract for 700,000, but the contract stipulates that there's a percentage share of the profit, sometimes 50-50, 30%, whatever it is. So you'd be making about 200,000 in terms of profit. So you would split that with the owner or the seller. So they would get 100,000 and you would get 100,000 and you walk away from the contract.
Mhm.
So those are generally like the three different, like programs that are available in like the typical assignment contracts that you see today.
Hmm. And I think another part which is important to also mention is that the concept of selling, when you, for example, I want to sell the assignment. It should be that at a point where the product is made or it's there. Is that correct? Because the concept, you can't sell something that you don't own
Not
or.
not necessarily, because this
Okay.
would be considered a salam transaction, right?
Okay.
You have all parties have knowledge of what's going on, right?
Uh huh.
It's not like you're selling something that's empty. You know that there's going to be
A
a
building there.
property,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is that, let's say condos, sometimes from the time that they allow the purchase of a unit, it could take like maybe 6 or 7 years before they even break ground, right?
Yeah.
And it's difficult because there's a lot of red tape to go through in terms of like cities and permits and whatnot.
Especially in Canada. Especially in Canada. If this was China, houses would be built like this.
I have a client who bought a townhouse 7 years ago, pre-construction,
Subhanallah.
and it's not done yet. Like
Subhanallah.
they're targeting like maybe next year, and
How
that
much
was mostly because the
he
builder
probably
wanted more
he
money, right?
yeah, how much did he pay? How much did he pay for I don't know if you can tell that, but I'm pretty sure he paid like 1/5 and now it's valued
So
so much
this
higher.
was it's close to Scarborough Town Center,
Okay.
and the townhouse was a 3-bed, 3-bath. At the time that he bought it,
Mm-hmm.
it was around $550,000, and this is 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Today, that same condo is probably worth $920,000 in
Yeah.
that area, right? Because it's a
Subhanallah.
free little townhouse.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening when he bought it 7 years ago is that the market was appreciating really quick. So the builder didn't want to close on these deals when the market was appreciating so quickly. So they were trying to get out of the contracts, and they were trying to buy back some of the contracts from the clients. A lot of people didn't want to, so they had to wait and release more of the property, like maybe a couple of years, so that they can make up some of the money that they think that they lost. And now 7 years later, they're still building these townhouses. So a lot can happen in the pre-construction market. Like I mean, personally, from an investment point of view, I like to go for the resale market because more than likely you will be able to get in, have your asset appreciate, and by the time the other property is ready, you would have had some equity to be able to put towards this property, even if you want it, right?
Yeah.
I think like the pre-construction market is open to some people who have a more well-balanced portfolio in terms of their investment, or they really want the property and they're willing to wait for it. But I wouldn't suggest for an everyday investor to just go ahead and do pre-construction, because there's so much more opportunity out there when it comes to real estate investing. Although, from a Sharia point of view, there could be an issue, especially here in Canada, because a lot of the time you're kind of priced out of the resale market from a Sharia point of view, because you're going to have to keep getting loans and mortgages that are not compliant. Unless you have a bunch of cash sitting around, then you're all good, right? I mean, and the average price in the GTA for a home is around $1 million, right? So it's crazy. So pre-construction is another route.
Yeah.
And you can buy and assign the contracts, especially given the way that the market's been moving. But I guess you want to say that the opportunity that's there between what the price will be by the time it's ready versus the price that you're paying now is a very small gap, because builders price in the future pricing ahead of time.
Yeah. They kind of calculate backwards. They're kind of like, okay, they already add the few years of markups, and then they calculate backwards for you, and it's it's you're kind of paying more. But as a whole, think about it. You just mentioned the concept of the flipping, the concept of flipping, and that's where the real money is. Nader, you're rich, a poor man like me. What do I do, right? So that's where the other question I was gonna say is the concept of halal loans and jumping into where. I mean, Canada's one issue, right? In Canada, in America, it's probably a lot easier, but in Canada, I think it's a lot more difficult to get those halal loans for investment. I think I don't even think that it's an option out there very viably available.
For commercial and investing, for real estate investors, it's not an option just as of yet.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time you'll have to deal with, private equities, some people maybe joining together and pulling their money together, or going for someone who's looking to become a partner or something like that, who has a little bit of money money like sitting around. And I think there is some opportunity there, especially if, like, let's say, for example, there's a property that's been sitting on the market for a while, like over a year, and then you directly approach the seller, and then you negotiate a contract that is Sharia compliant. I mean, this is completely fair to do. So there wouldn't be any interest, there wouldn't be any penalties for missed payments, there wouldn't be, any repercussions, like in terms of, the onus of who is responsible with regards to, like any like duties or something that comes with the land. Like, a lot of this can be easily executed when it comes to specific types of properties. Like, you wouldn't be able to do this with like prime properties.
Yeah.
You have to have of the real estate market on the whole to analyze an asset and kind of like try to determine whether it's, there's value in it or not, right? And
Yeah.
for the help of a professional like myself, will come in so that they can, kind of project and see whether or not an asset or a property is, worth it or not. And if you're looking at something down the line that would help appreciate and get you rich at the end of the day, right?
See, this is why it's important to get you a person that has knowledge of both real estate and Sharia concepts, because they're gonna help you make that. I'm gonna do a mashallah money, because they'll help you make that money the halal way, the proper way, and in essence, that's where barakah is from. Like you can make as much money as you want, but if there's no barakah, read the journals of the Wall Street traders who suicided at 50 million dollars in their bank accounts because they didn't find peace in their fitrah, right, in their heart, in their soul. Okay, that's a whole new tangent. I can go on for that for like days. Wholesaling. I know there's a lot of hype around this right now, especially in America. I mean, it's so easy to make money in America, but wholesaling, can I get involved? I'm a Muslim, I'm conscious, but I want to make that mashallah money. Can I get involved?
So there is a fine line between, how the wholesaling market is operating versus what is Sharia compliant. Technically speaking, you can wholesale as a Muslim, but there are stipulations. It always comes down to the language that's in the contract and the way that you conduct your business. Because honestly, real estate wholesalers are extremely shady, and they're very deceptive, and they play games. And I'm not trying to group a lot of people in there, because there's a lot of people who are professional and they would be upfront with the people that they're purchasing properties from. But a lot of the time, when it comes down to the contract, to the language of the contract, it's not compliant. So a lot of the time, like, these practices, especially the way they conduct themselves, is not Islamic, right? So when you're talking about wholesaling, you're basically talking about the same kind of process that happens with pre-construction. You agree to a contract, and then later on you assign it to another party to close, and you make whatever profit is in between. The difference is that most of these contracts, even if they have the language for assignment, it's usually done without the seller's knowledge, right? So I'll just give you an example. Like, let's say for kind of like pulling something out of the air, like, I had a client who was looking at a wholesale property, and he was really interested in it. So when we approached the wholesaler and told him we'd like to see the property, the problem is that when you're dealing directly with an owner and you purchase the property from them, there's only a number of showings that you can have before the closing date. So they booked one showing for all of us to go in at a certain time. So once we got there, we weren't allowed into the property until we were briefed by the wholesaler, telling us that we were not allowed to talk to the owner. We're not allowed to bring up that we're buying the contract. We have to pretend that we're contractors looking through the property to assess, how much it'll cost to do a renovation, right? So right off the bat, there's all sorts of shade, like so many different levels of shade that, that they're not being straightforward with the owners, straightforward with the people who are buying. They're just in there to get a contract or a house under contract and to resell it to the highest bidder, right? And at the same time, they're taking advantage of the situation, because the way that they generate their leads is that they source out stressed properties. So properties that aren't being maintained, properties that aren't taken care of, or that are vacant. And I mean, it's halal to approach the owners yourself and to purchase it for yourself.
Yeah.
But in order to sell that contract, there has to be knowledge on all parties.
That, with the various things that are involved with wholesaling, it's just very difficult to make it permissible. Even if you have a very stringent contract, really, it's just gonna be really difficult.
Well, the problem isn't the contract. The problem is the knowledge on the owner's side. They need to be completely aware of what's going on, right? Which is
transparency.
Because for you to be able to assign a contract, there has to be an assignment clause in it. Like, you won't be able to do it without it. Otherwise, you're going to be purchasing and then selling the property. It'll be yours. So this is halal, right?
Yeah.
But in order to assign a contract, there has to be an assignment clause, right? And a lot of the time, they're like, especially in like in the Toronto area, like an assignment clause is not something that you find in the standard purchase agreement. This has to be a separate agreement that was agreed upon, or a clause that's added to the Schedule A of like agreement of purchase and sale, right? So when it comes to having an assignment clause, sure, this makes it sharia compliant. But the other part is the knowledge of the owner in order to make it a halal transaction. Because in other words, you're just like trying to like walk away with money that you're trying to steal, and trying to like make sure that people are oblivious to the fact that you're reselling their property for more money, right? Because that's not going to fly with a lot of people. It's like, why would I sell it to you for $250,000 and you're going to go sell it to somebody else for $275 and then make $25,000? Like, what did you do that I couldn't do?
Exactly.
So, but a lot of the time, some people are just like, okay, you know what? I wasn't going to sell it anyways. If you can sell it for higher, then go ahead. You try. Or sometimes they'll make agreement like, hey, how about we split the profit? I agree to give it to you to $250 plus half of whatever you're able to sell it for.
And that could work, because then you're it's like hiring somebody. Like, it's like getting an agent to.
I mean, like buying and selling real estate, you need a license to be able to do it legally, right? I mean, you can resell a contract, but again, it's then a lot of people ask you, then what's the difference of being a real estate agent? Well, we have a representation agreement versus an agreement of purchase and sale, right? Yeah. So a representation agreement is you being on the same page with the sellers in order to sell their property, and you get a commission for doing that, which is halal.
Yeah.
But when you come to buy the property directly from an owner, and then you go sell that contract without their knowledge, even if there's an assignment clause in there, this is not halal. Yeah. So there's a huge difference.
Yeah. Fair enough. Good. Cool. Okay, so I think that kind of helps people understand, not everything in hype, not everything that makes you quick money, or, that can make you money is something that we should be jumping in, not only because it's not, sharia compliant, but also because some things are just not right things to do. And so, it's a good point to have. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I just want to jump onto a little round that I do. It's like a quick fire round. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw out a few questions. Just give your first answer that comes to your brain. Okay?
Sure.
All right. Murabaha versus musharaka.
Murabaha for me is way easier of a transaction to deal with.
Favorite place to sell real estate?
What do you mean by fair place?
The favorite, like, where do you think you enjoy the most, and like where do you think is the best to sell?
Like, it's got to be the suburbs around Toronto, man. Like, it's easy money, right?
Best place to buy real estate as an investor?
Outside of the core. So a lot of these properties still haven't appreciated to their full potential yet. So and plus, like, the rental rates are much higher in terms of return on investment.
Okay. All right. Blue Jays, Leafs, or Raptors?
Raptors.
Hands
down.
All right. What is your favorite stock?